Hello.
Hey, everyone.
So as we were just praying, my eyeballs, I had my eyes closed and they were just rolling around in the back of my head. I could just feel them bouncing all over, just nonstop. I mean, it's so this morning I woke up and the radio was on, and this girl that's a teenager, she is got severe Tourette's, vocal Tourette's, and somebody was doing a podcast or something with her, and she's just F-word this, just blowing out. I mean, and she's got all the muscular tics going on and everything. And from the time that I listened to that this morning, she's just put me into full just tic mode. I mean, so not tic. I mean, a lot of people have tics. I can go on. I mean, my mom had this little.
I did too.
My best friend that just about everybody knows, he's got that thing, and he's the number one fan of my tics. He loves to make fun of me. I'd see him, and the first thing he'd do for, like, since we were kids, first thing he'd like to do is anytime he'd see me. And I don't know how that looked just then, but I mean, that's how he'd say, "Hey, Cori, what's going on?" Hey. You know? And so when I was in high school, it started when I was 13, 14 years old. And my son already started getting it, and I've seen it some in my youngest daughter. But theirs are still just tics. I haven't seen theirs. Well, my son has had some Tourette signs, but I also have a few customers who have children that have Tourette's. And having Tourette's, I've known quite a few people that have been vulnerable and allowed themselves to say, well, I've got it too. And you know, anybody that really knows me, anybody that's been in my life consistently for a period of time, especially my high school friends, they know that I have got Tourette syndrome, and it has never gone away. I'm 45 years old, and whenever I listened to this morning, so I texted Kelly saying, you know, maybe we could record something on my Tourette's, and we've talked about it before. And as I talk, I can control my Tourette's. I say that when I'm alone and I'm not talking. I mean, this one will start and it'll just keep going and going and going, and there's just like I just want to do that. When I was in high school,
your whole face.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I would just like put my head down and act like I'm resting, and that's when I would do my full-blown tics. Tourette syndrome is, I know how I can make it stop.
Well, what is it? What is Tourette's?
It's just an inability to control your muscles. I mean, they spasm. Your entire muscular system just spasms out. Tourette's. I mean, tics, I think, are just habits that people have. I mean, I get it. There's this stuff that people do, and they have to reach like a certain feeling where they can stop finally doing it, you know. And
that's kind of like an OCD kind of thing.
OCD type behavior where you just have to reach like a certain number or something like that, and you can stop. Stuff with fingers, but Tourette's is completely muscular, just spasms that they don't stop. And drugs are a way to make them stop. I mean, I can shut them down. There are ways that I know I can make it stop. When I'm having a day that, like today, I know that I can make it stop immediately. And it really is something that just, it's all consuming, you know. Like, I've kept myself busy, and I've worked out, and I've been to a meeting, and I've been working, but anytime I'm in my car, it's full blown. And there are times where I can't make it stop. It will just keep going. So
Did you want to, like, allow it?
as I talk, it's suppressed.
Oh. It just does it itself. Like you've
Oh,
learned to.
I so did not want to record this. It is, it's something that I've been so embarrassed about my whole life, and it's so funny. Like, why? It's humiliating. You feel like everybody's looking at you. You feel like, I mean, you're really just feel really ugly. You're spasming out. You're kind of like an epileptic spasm.
And I'm sure as a child, children don't know, and so children can just be mean just because, and not even being mean, they just make fun of something that's different than what they know, and so then that will affect, how you feel.
And I knew my close friends loved me, that we were great friends, and they'd still make fun of me, and as a kid, even if it is just joking around, it's still, you're like, I'm weird. What's wrong with me?
Yeah, you have to suppress it.
Yeah, I'm different. So very often in the cafeteria, I'd just put my head down and just... That's the one that Ian loved to make fun of. That's the one that anytime I'd see him, he'd just...
So it gets your throat too?
It's,
Just let it go. You are. It is. And that was one.
That's, and it wants to just keep coming. It wants to keep going. But if I talk, and you can tell I'm talking fast, and it keeps it suppressed, it keeps my diaphragm relaxed, or contracted, whatever. As I talk, I can make it not happen. But I want people that are young, that are teenagers, if you're an adult and you have a kid that struggles with this, know that it is something that you can learn to live with, that it doesn't have to control your life. I don't know if it's... I've never been medicated for it. I don't know if there are... I know there are medications that kids can take today to help with it, but I don't think there's anything that can make it go away. I have a customer whose child has dealt with it his whole life since he was like 10 years old. And he has the full-blown, the vocal stuff. Less than 10% are really vocal. And I talked about it on here before, that I took advantage of that at times, just so I could get away and go actually do what I have to do, my spasms. But it is a very embarrassing... You feel just weird. You feel different than everybody. You feel like you just don't fit in with anybody. It's a very isolating illness, but it is something that a person can gain the ability to function and overcome. It's not something that has to always control your life. If you're a teenager and you want to kill yourself because you have Tourette's, it's not always gonna be that bad. It was daily. It was constant. It was something that I lived with till I was in my 20s, but and it's... I'm, like I said, I'm 45 now, and I live with it. Weeks might go by. Well, I don't. Yeah, time can go by where you don't have it control your life, but it's a part of my daily life, and it's something that I've learned to live with, and to there are breathing techniques. If you can learn to... Yoga has saved my life. Yoga is something that you're focused on your breathing, so it allows your diaphragm... I think a lot of it is spasmatic in your diaphragm, which actually, I mean, is going to control your entire respiratory system, you know, which is going to do a lot of stuff to your face.
Do you notice, like, when your anxiety is higher? Like, do you notice times when it's worse than other times? Like, if your anxiety is higher, it causes it worse?
I don't know if the Tourette's causes the anxiety or if the anxiety causes the Tourette's. I've been sweating a lot today. It's just a biological thing, and I don't have like this. I wish I could say there is something that you can do and it will go away and there's a cure for it. But it's I don't know. I'm 45, and when I'm 70, if we're still doing this, I can tell you if it's still going on. But I've just accepted it, and I think that's, you know, talking about it. If you are a teenager and you have friends, just tell them, look, this is what I deal with, and just be at peace with who you are. I know it's easier said than done, but just maybe straight up let it all out right in front of them and say, look, that's what happens to me sometimes, and I have no control over it. And I don't know, laugh at myself about it. Just let it be what it is and realize that we're all humans. We deal with stuff, and I mean, it's not worth losing your life over. I mean, there's a lot of people that just can't live with it. A lot of teenagers that it's just something they just cannot live with, and it's sad, and it's overlooked, and I think it's never even diagnosed. You know, they'll be 15, 16 years old and end up dead, and people are like, what happened? And they've been having Tourette's in their bedroom and dropping out of school and isolating, and so if your kids have Tourette's, you talk about it. Don't make it something that's embarrassing. Don't make it something that is hidden or like something that you're embarrassed about for people to know. And just, everybody is different.
Yeah, I can't really remember us talking about it. You know?
No.
Like, it wasn't ever talked about.
It was just laughed about. It was laughed about. Even within the family.
You're right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Dinner table, breakfast table, playing. If I did, I mean, in-laws, the family, the whole family, I mean, friends. There was nobody in my spectrum that ever related with me when it came to Tourette's. And I'm not putting blame on anybody.
No,
I mean, what do you do with somebody that's got
and you
this?
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you just laugh. You might even think they're like the girl that was even doing this interview. The people that were talking about the person that did the interview. So it was an interview about the interview, and they were even saying, like, when I first heard this girl, I was wondering if she's just doing it to get views, if she's just doing it to get an audience. And he said after he watched a few of her videos and watched her, I mean, she's like 16 years old, and I don't even know what her platform is or how to direct you to her. Teenage girl with Tourette syndrome or whatever, I don't know. I've never seen her. But she has found a cure for, I mean, it's not taking it away, but she's talking about it and she's living with it, and she has embraced it as something that she struggles with, and she's sharing it with others and giving other people hope. And that's the only reason that I wanted to do this, because that girl is very brave. She's probably got family that deals with it too, so she's had some support around her. But talk about it, man. Just let it out, and be at peace with the fact that everybody's built differently. Our anatomy is, everybody's different, you know? And like I said, I'm not placing blame on anybody in our family or any of my friends or anybody, but a disease like this, if it's a disease, and you asked, do I know a lot about it? I've avoided it my whole life. You know, it's something that I haven't wanted to look at. And it's, like I said, it makes you feel completely alone and isolated. And even when you're with your most inner circle, your family, you know, because nobody knows, nobody understands, nobody gets it, and it's real. And anybody that really knows me knows that it's real. It's not something that I'm making up, you know. I mean, I've struggled with it for 32 years.
So how old were you?
12, 13 years old when it started. And, you know, did drugs make it happen? No. But drugs was a solution for it. You know,
did you wonder what was going on? Like, whenever it started, did you tell anybody, or?
I mean, when it started happening, people just laughed at me. I mean, I don't know if you remember it starting.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't know if anybody in the family remembers it starting. I don't know if any of my friends remember it starting. I do. I mean, I remember, like, what's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Why am I like this? But my real memories are in high school, and I had a girlfriend. I mean, she just accepted it for what it was. And, I mean, she's... might be the only person that never laughed at me about it. I'm not emotional about it. I've just never talked about it before, and I've never really thought about it as much as I am right now. But it's, like I said, you're not alone, you know? And if I didn't have it and never lived with it, and I saw somebody doing it, my first reaction would be to laugh too. And that's what they were talking about on that podcast. The guy that was doing the podcast was kind of like laughing at her. And it's because they're uncomfortable. They're not laughing at you. They're laughing at they're feeling uncomfortable. And so how does that make me feel? Everybody's uncomfortable around me. They don't know what to do around me. They don't know how to respond to it. I mean, what do you say to that? I mean, what do you do to that? What do you... And it hurts. I mean, it can cause really severe neck pain, throat pain, like where you can barely eat sometimes, because I mean, there's severe, I don't know if you could see it in the video, but it's all through here. And that's all I knew to do was just to put my head down and just cover my face, because you have to go to school. No, you don't. You can homeschool, you know? I don't have a solution for anybody out there, but I can say that you're not alone. And that it is not always going to control your life. That you're not always going to have to go through it. Like, I have months that go by where I don't do it, but if I'm around somebody that's got Tourette's, it's coming out. And it's definitely something that is influenced by other people that have tics. The mother of my children, when she has her tick, like her habits, it sets me off. When my son does it, it sets me off. And when people joke and start making fun of it, it sets me off. All of my high school friends, they'd love to just go and they'd do this stuff, and it would make me just and they knew that it would make it happen. And so it was
They're
funny.
Just like waiting.
It was funny. But it is a feeling of complete isolation, of feeling alone, and that nobody can relate, nobody understands, but you're not alone. There are people out there, and I know that that's not even, because I still feel alone in that, but I know I'm not. And I know that there's a lot of people that deal with it. And there's a lot of people that don't deal with it. They just end up being a statistic, and people don't know what happened. Like I said, it's I think a lot of teenage suicide is they don't even know why it happened, and it has to do with the fact that you couldn't live with it.
I think just talking about it, just opening up about it, and whoever comes across this, it helps people to talk about it more. It's just not talked about.
Yeah.
And I think that if more people will talk about it and recognize it for what it is, and not shame it and laugh at it and just make fun of it, but just the awareness of it, that people live with this daily.
Yeah. And I can sit over, breathe. Just breathe and allow yourself to relax. Take deep breaths. I don't want to send out a hopeless message. I have learned how to control it. There are times where there is no control over it. I was saying, I was doing a customer's house this morning, and as I would go through any room and I'd be alone, I'd start doing my thing, and then as I'd talk and go back through, it would stop, but each time I'd stop talking, it would come back on, and this was right after I was listening to that girl do her thing. So it isn't something that will always control your life. Today, I don't have it controlling my life. It did have, it was all-consuming. It was all-consuming from the time I was 13 or 14 years old until I was in my 20s. It was 100% a consistent, nonstop, everyday issue in my life that I lived with. That I had nobody to talk to. I had nobody to relate with. I had nobody to go to. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. At that time, it wasn't really even, I don't remember anybody even really talking about it, except for the real vulgar swearing out loud type stuff. That was the only ones that really got the attention. And like I said, less than 10% of Tourette syndrome people have it vocal. But you aren't alone. That's all I want to say. I've been going for 24 minutes. I could sit here and let Kelly sit here, and I could tick out and just do it, but I think I've done it enough. I don't need to make it a public. It is. It's anybody that knows me already knows, so it isn't anything new to anybody that really knows me. But for anybody out there that comes across this that is struggling, especially for you teenagers, it's not. Talk about it, and if your family laughs at you, and tell them how you feel about it. It's nothing to be ashamed of, you know. And we live in a world today where people are more understanding and get it, you know. There's so many different disorders and so many things that people deal with. So, you know, if people laugh at you, just say I've got Tourette syndrome. I've got Tourette's, and what do you struggle with? You know, I've got Tourette's, and it's a muscle spasm. Is there anything that you have that you struggle with? I mean, everybody has something. Everybody struggles with something. The solution is not drugs. That just makes it worse. I promise that there is no solution in when I say drugs, I mean illicit, like drug abuse. It's not a solution. I promise you that. It's just going to kill you or put you through a life of misery. But you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there that can relate. There's a lot of people that do struggle with Tourette's, and it's just not talked about.
Someone, Billie Eilish, you know who that is?
Ah, yeah.
She has it.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's very famous and popular out there and talks, and she talks openly about it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter's a really big fan of Billie Eilish, and I was aware of that. So that's what I've lived with my whole life. I really was almost home. I had texted Kelly. I just have had this on my mind all day, and I've been dealing with it today, and almost made it home. I was going to just isolate and not do this, but I felt that it was something on a day like today that I should. I mean, it's just what I'm dealing with today. And it doesn't control my life today. You will not suffer, and it's okay.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing and for opening up in that way.
That went longer than I thought, and I'm very sweaty, and I'm going to go tick out for the rest of the day probably. I love y'all.
Bye, y'all.